Lafayette Mayor President Joel Robideaux joining us to talk a little breaking news this morning. And Mayor, want to ask you about, you said you had received a call from the Secretary of State's office and it concerns our local government. Could you explain what you have found out, sir?
Yes, the Secretary of State called this morning about some conflicts both between the maps as it related to the charter splits and the new precincts that were being drawn in the new districts for both the city and the parish, and also that there was errors in the charter language, leaving some precincts out and some other issues. So he said both the maps and the charter language needed to be corrected, and that we're on a really short window to make those corrections that would then need to go back to the voters.
So he is saying that part of the language needs to be changed and the maps would need to be changed. Did he specify what part of the language needs to be different or updated or corrected?
Yeah, it's an 80 or I don't know how many page document, but somewhere it's buried in there around 70 something is, I shouldn't use that phrase, but they is where all the precincts are detailed out. This city council district 1 is made up of these precincts, and these precincts include, and so it's all of that language that has some errors and conflicts in there that need to be fixed.
So how do you go about doing that at this point?
He's gonna, I don't want to jump the gun. He told me, look, there's a March 11th deadline in order to get the fixes in, the fixes to the charter to get them into the Secretary of State in order to make it to a ballot for the fall elections. So that suggests to me that's what's going to be required, which would basically mean, by my assessment, that the process has to start over.
Wow. Okay. So,
but he said he would correspond to both me, the council, the registrar of voters with, here's what we need from our end in order for y'all to get this fixed. And then it'll be up to us to make those fixes. And depending how timely we are, how timely the council's efforts are, will determine, when and if those fixes are made.
So, Mayor President, I'm curious, at the time when this process was going forward and people were discussing the issues back and forth, two individuals we had on our show, one was Kevin Blanchard with the group Fix the Charter. One was Andy Hebert. He's kind of a guy who looks into a lot of different things in local government, has for years. One of the big things that Andy talked about is he felt that there needed to be more time to really look into this. Now, at that time, did you feel as if you agreed? And how do you feel about it now?
I was pretty clear in the editorial that I wrote that I felt like we needed to take our time and get it right. So in this particular instance, I happen to agree with Mr. Hebert.
Tell me about the thought process that goes on for you at this point, because I'm sure, you have heard from many residents that the parish residents want their autonomy and the city residents want their autonomy. So I'll bet it was constant discussions back and forth with people telling you what they thought.
Oh yeah. I mean, look, I don't think anyone, there was no one that at least publicly was willing to say Lafayette doesn't deserve its own city council, which is effectively a correctly organized LPUA, the Lafayette Public Utilities, is a Lafayette City Council. It just was never organized that way, and so there were a lot of options on the table. They, the council chose to go down the path that went before the voters, but it's a conversation that needs to continue. It's a conversation that's important for, I think, all of Lafayette, and we need to continue having it. But this is a situation that we need to take a step back and do whatever is right on behalf of the voters.
Now, let me follow that up, Mayor President, by asking, some have suggested and did during the process before the vote that perhaps we should try to take it 2 or 3 items at a time. Do you think that might be a better process?
I think a slower process, a more thorough public discussion is the best process. So, if you do it that way and have it all at one time, great. If you do it in pieces and that works, and you do it, transparently, that's great. But at the end of the day, we're trying to work hard to let the voters know that government's working for them. And so situations like this, are certainly a step backwards. So how we react to it is, to me, more important than anything else we do.
All right, that's an interesting perspective. So going forward from this point on, do we try to get this done to get it on a fall ballot, or is that too ambitious at this point?
Well, I'll wait to get the instructions from the Secretary of State, but based on the phone conversation, he was saying March 11th. That seems a little too ambitious.
These candidates are looking at this and they're wondering what they should do. Wow. I don't think anybody expected this.
I'm hoping that if we hear from the Secretary of State soon, I would think early next week at the latest, that we'll, and when I say we, I mean the council ultimately will have to make a decision on what their next steps are and what that means for the split, or to wait and start public discussions to do something at a later date. So there's a lot in limbo right now. We're going to wait for instructions from Secretary Ardoin and his elections commissioner, and hopefully have that sooner rather than later. And then we're going to start having the public conversation soon thereafter. The process is always that the council ratifies the results, the registrar of voters then receives it and goes through it with a fine-tooth comb, works with the Secretary of State's office to ensure that everything is clear and that there's no conflict. And it was during that process that it was discovered that there was mistakes and errors, and so that's when the registrar of voters called a meeting on Tuesday, 2 days ago, with Chairman Bellard, with the demographer, with the lawyers, to say we've got an issue. And so Chairman Bellard's been on top of this since then, and then legal kept me informed. And then this morning the Secretary of State called to kind of give me a heads up of where he felt like they were headed. Mm-hmm. And so I just felt like it was important enough that we let the public know what conversations are going on about it.
Absolutely. Definitely. So as we're wrapping up here, I'm curious, what kind of final thought do you want to leave with us at this particular point for listeners?
I'd like the listeners to know that, we've been made aware that there's an issue with the December vote. We're working hand in hand with the Secretary of State's office and the election commissioner. We'll engage the council to decide what direction they want to go as it relates to corrective action. And we'll know more next week, but just know that there's going to be a lot of conversations moving forward.
All right, sir, I want to thank you very much on behalf of listeners for taking the time to share the information with us. And obviously, we'll be keeping in contact with you going forward as the process kind of unfolds. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.